My story that I'm going to share is really about what I've learned through my experience of working in the outdoors and seeing kind of the transformational experience that many people have gone through. And I hope from that you'll learn something or think about how you can apply maybe some outdoor practice in your own work, or just use that as a way to find a more authentic version of yourself or your colleagues or whatever position of leadership you hold. I was the kid in school who, like maybe some of you, I hope, had always had like the underachiever comment, like if he could just focus, he could live up to his potential, those kinds of things. And in grade 2, this memory of walking into the classroom for parent-teacher interviews with my mom, and she asked the teacher, hey, which one is Andrew's desk? And she looks over, points at a desk in the middle of the room, and it's the one that has a 4.5-foot corrugated box around it. Because I was the kid that was distracting all of the other kids, and so this was supposed to, I guess, help the other kids. I guess they weren't so worried about me. So I grew up in Toronto, not Toronto, Toronto. And at that point in time, every grade 5 student in the public school board got to go on a 5-day outdoor education experience. And this was the first time like I really felt the power of the outdoors, now thinking back. And at the time I could feel it. We were kind of like let to run loose on Toronto Island for 5 days. We learned about geography, science, wetland studies, leadership, all of these things. And it was the most powerful experience I had in my elementary school. And it really made me feel alive and like, this is where I meant to be. And then you kind of go back to the 4 walls, back to the box, and remember that you kind of suck at school. So there is another conversation in there for another day about where public education is at. That's not for now, because I actually think it's probably gotten a little worse maybe. But the point of this is really just to talk about like that connection to the outdoors and how you use that in a way to like unlock, maybe the potential of folks who you are working with. And, those experiences might have subconsciously put me on this career path, I guess, that I'm on. Because I have maybe 2 or 3 stories I'll share about how I've seen the outdoors used in a way to kind of break down barriers and build more authentic relationships. I was working actually at a community health center in Ottawa on a gang prevention program that was funded by the Center for Crime Prevention. It's one of these grants that never really gives you enough and it's never long enough. But they hired me, the community hired me to come in and help build relationships between the young people and the police who were in that community. They were at odds. You hear this story all the time. And they were looking for different ways to do that. So I brought in, some outdoor ed stuff. And it took me 3 or 4 months to get to the point where I could get some of these young people and some of the police on a hiking trip and doing some rock climbing together. And, did it change the world? No. But, for that moment in time, you could see that the field had been leveled. People were on the same page, more or less, and they actually found commonalities. And, it did serve a purpose in building some relationships. Unsustainable funding, but hey, it was a good start. Then the next thing, I worked at an organization that, this is a healthcare room, so maybe you're familiar with the Canadian Diabetes Association. Diabetes, as you know, is a chronic disease, takes a ton of effort to manage. Getting to self-management is a big deal. And the Diabetes Association ran these camps across Canada, and every year those physicians, nurses, doctors, dietitians, 500 of them would come to those camps to serve about 2,000 kids. And the doctors, nurses, dietitians who went there, they did that because they saw it as a huge investment in the clinical outcomes of their kids, because they could help them on a day-to-day basis. But more than that, they could establish relationships with these kids in a way that is not possible in the clinic. You're outside of those 4 walls of the clinic, you're outside the box, you're canoeing, throwing pie in your doctor's face, whatever it is. It was just a really powerful, I think, experience of, doing something different and having awesome outcomes. And there's all kinds of research that goes behind those camps. And in my current role at Outward Bound, that's something that, we do all the time. We work with community groups that are right across the country, healthcare, schools, Indigenous communities, you name it. All of those organizations and people approach us because they're looking to do something different with whoever it is they're serving, or with their team from a management perspective, whatever that is. And you can just see it every time when you get outside, on a hike, a canoe, multi-day camping, whatever it is. That experience has the propensity to level the playing field and help people really discover who they are, show who they are in a really non-threatening way. So just, I would say in closing, I think so often we're in leadership roles. I'm in a leadership role where, sometimes you need to kind of be the front of the room. You need to take control. You need to do those things. But I think thinking about using the outdoors in some way or changing the environment into some novel experience is a really, I think, powerful way to reset that and build more authentic relationships with whoever it is you're a leader of. And so I think, coming out of this, it's like, how do you kind of get outside of the box? And then how do you kind of bring that back to, bring that into your practice? Just, like the walking meeting or hey, instead of doing a strategic planning retreat in a boardroom, we're going to go and we're going to incorporate a hike and have some natural conversations, those types of things. So anyway, I think for me, it's, it started with the box and it ends now with, I think, really seeing what that power of the outdoors is, creating novel space and trying to build more authentic relationships.